What if the safest place for your money was the most dangerous? What if the man everyone trusted was the one stealing from them? What if the warning signs were there all along and nobody wanted to see them? $65 billion, 37,000 victims, 50 years of lies. One man. This is the story of Bernie Madoff. And when it's over, you will never look at money or people the same way again. December 11, 2008, cold Thursday morning in Manhattan. Two FBI agents ride an elevator to the penthouse of a luxury building on East 64th Street. They knock. A man in his 70s opens the door. Calm, well-dressed, composed. His name is Bernard Lawrence Madoff. Former chairman of NASDAQ. Founder of one of the most powerful investment firms in history. Philanthropist, trusted advisor to the wealthy elite of two continents. The kind of man you felt lucky just to know. One of the agents asks, "Is there an innocent explanation?" Madoff pauses, then says, "No, there is no innocent explanation." In that single sentence, 50 years of lies collapsed. To understand how Bernie Madoff built the greatest fraud in financial history, you have to go back to the beginning. Not to Wall Street, not to Manhattan, to Queens, New York, 1938. Bernie grew up in a modest family. His father tried to enter the world of finance and failed. That image never left Bernie. He was determined to succeed where his father hadn't, determined to belong to a world that had no place for people like him. He worked summers as a lifeguard, saved every dollar. And in 1960, at just 22 years old with $5,000 in savings, he opened Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities. No clients, no connections, no reputation. Just a phone, an office, and an obsession with proving himself. And then, slowly, brilliantly, Madoff did something nobody had done before. While other brokers were shouting orders on paper across trading floors, he was building technology that could execute trades electronically. He helped create NASDAQ, the world's first electronic stock market. By the 1990s, his firm was processing roughly 10% of all NYSE trading volume on some days. The boy from Queens had arrived, and Wall Street was applauding. But here's what most people don't know. Madoff ran two businesses under one name. One was real, one was fiction. And he kept them on separate floors, separate employees, separate rules. Nobody from the trading side was allowed upstairs. Nobody asked why. The fictional side, hey, his investment advisory business, was where the fraud lived, and to get in, you had to be chosen. He didn't advertise. He didn't cold call. You got access because someone brought you in. A friend, a colleague, a contact from the country club. His network ran deep through elite social circles, Jewish country clubs in Palm Beach, charitable foundations in New York, old money families across Europe. Madoff didn't just exploit financial trust, he exploited community trust. The trust people place in those who share their world, their values, their history. That is one of the most calculated, and cruel parts of what he did. He targeted the people most likely to trust him without question, and then he made them feel lucky to do it. His clients received 10 to 12% returns every year without exception. When the dot-com bubble burst, they made money. When markets crashed after September 11th, they made money. When volatility spiked and professional fund managers were having their worst years in a decade, they made money. Now, if you know anything about finance, you already know this is impossible. Even Warren Buffett has bad years. No legitimate strategy produces positive returns regardless of what the market does. When clients asked how he did it, Madoff talked about a split-strike conversion strategy. Something complicated, something involving options and blue-chip stocks. Most people didn't fully understand it, and that was exactly the point. When you don't understand something, you fall back on trust. And Madoff had spent decades building more trust than almost anyone on Wall Street. Certainty anesthetizes curiosity. So what was he actually doing? Nothing. Madoff wasn't investing his clients' money. He was holding it. When new money came in, he used it to pay the returns of older clients. No strategy, no stocks, no market exposure. Just an endless shuffle of money from one pocket to another. That is a Ponzi scheme, named after Charles Ponzi, an Italian con man from the 1920s. But Ponzi's scheme lasted 8 months. Madoff's lasted 50 years. The logic is brutal in its simplicity. While new money keeps flowing in, the system survives. The moment more people want out than in, it collapses instantly. The genius, if you can call it that, was that Madoff never promised too much. 10 to 12%, not 50, not 100. Just a little better than everyone else. Forever. Believable enough to never trigger suspicion. Consistent enough to build a legend. And here's where the story gets truly disturbing, because people noticed. Harry Markopolos was a financial analyst in Boston. In 1999, his boss asked him to reverse engineer Madoff's strategy, to figure out how he was generating those returns so their own firm could replicate it. Markopolos sat down with the numbers. Within 4 hours, he knew. But the math didn't work. It was mathematically impossible. Either Madoff was front-running, illegally profiting from advanced knowledge of client orders, or it was a Ponzi scheme. Those were the only two options. Markopolos went to the SEC, submitted a detailed report in 2000. They did nothing. He went back in 2001. Nothing. In 2005, he submitted a 21-page document titled, "And this is real. The world's largest hedge fund is a fraud." Specific evidence, specific calculations, specific red flags. The SEC investigated briefly and walked away. One analyst figured it out in 4 hours. The most powerful financial regulator in the world couldn't act on it in 8 years because nobody could bring themselves to believe that Bernie Madoff was a criminal. That's not a failure of process, that's a failure of imagination. For decades, Madoff lived knowing that one bad day could end everything. That day came in September 2008. When Lehman Brothers collapsed and triggered the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression, panic spread through every market on Earth. And investors everywhere, terrified, desperate, started pulling out everything they could. Madoff's clients were no different. $7 billion in withdrawal requests flooded in within weeks. He had maybe 300 million left. The math was over. On the evening of December 9th, Madoff called his 2 sons into his apartment. He told them he wanted to pay bonuses early. They found it strange. They pushed back. And then Madoff broke. He told them everything. That the advisory business was a lie. That it had always been a lie. That he had been running a massive Ponzi scheme for decades. That he was finished. The next morning, his sons called a lawyer. The lawyer called the FBI. The greatest fraud in history ended not because of regulators, not because of journalists, not because of investigators, but because Bernie Madoff told his sons the truth, and they turned him in. The numbers don't fully capture it, but let's try. 37,000 victims across more than 100 countries. Between $17 and $20 billion in real money. Gone. $65 billion in account statements that clients believed were real. Fictional wealth that evaporated overnight. Among the victims, the Elie Wiesel Foundation for Humanity, wiped out, hospitals, cancer research centers, schools, thousands of retirees who lost everything. A French investment manager, unable to face his clients, was found dead in his Manhattan office 12 days after the arrest. He had taken his own life. Madoff was sentenced to 150 years in prison. He died in a federal medical facility in April 2021. He was 82. His son Mark died by suicide exactly 2 years after the arrest. His other son Andrew died of cancer at 48. There is no version of this story that ends well. When a story like this ends, the temptation is to find a monster and feel safe. To say, he was evil, I would never fall for that. But that is the wrong conclusion. Madoff's victims included Nobel laureates, bank executives, hedge fund managers who spent their careers analyzing risk. These were not naive people. And yet, because Madoff didn't exploit stupidity, he exploited the shortcuts every human brain uses to process the world. The shortcut that says, if my community trusts someone, I can trust them too. The shortcut that says, if someone has been right for 30 years, they're probably right now. The shortcut that says, asking hard questions is an insult and I don't want to seem rude. These shortcuts aren't weaknesses, they are survival tools. The problem is that a skilled manipulator can learn to control the signals that trigger them. Madoff didn't beat the system. He understood human nature better than the system did. 1. If returns are perfect across all market conditions, walk away. That is not genius, that is a lie. 2. Exclusivity is a sales technique, not a safety signal. The harder someone works to make you feel chosen, the more carefully you should look at what you're being chosen for. 3. Complexity. You can't understand is not sophistication, it is concealment. 4. Diversify, always. No single person should ever hold everything you have. And the one that matters most. Your skepticism is not rudeness. Asking questions is not an insult. The right people will welcome your questions, the ones who don't. That's your answer. Bernie Madoff is gone, but the conditions that created him are not. The fraud didn't last 50 years because he was a genius. It lasted because we have a deep, almost desperate need to believe that the right people are in control. That someone, somewhere, knows what they're doing. That if we find the right expert, we'll be safe. That need is human, understandable, even beautiful, but it is also the oldest vulnerability in the book. So the next time someone offers you certainty in an uncertain world, the next time the returns sound too consistent, the next time you feel lucky just to be in the room, stop. Ask the question no one else is willing to ask. Because 37,000 people didn't, and they paid for it with everything they had.